Welcome to day 16 of my Valentine series, and today we'll be painting a Cupid's arrow. So we're gonna start off with a simple outline. I want it to look like it's leaning up against a wall, so I like having those cast shadows. And I'll just do a quick little outline of a corner. So I'm using a ruler here to make it easier, and then I will have the arrow leaning against this corner of the wall. I want the tip of the arrow to be a heart shape, so I'm doing a quick little heart shape outline, and then I'll use a ruler to create the shaft, and then I'll just stencil in some quick feathers at the end. I'm doing a simple outline of the feathers. The detail is going to go in once I add the watercolor paint, but right now I'm just giving myself an idea of where I want them to be. I like my cast shadow to be a defined object shape, so sometimes I stencil it in first just to give myself an idea of where I want it. Once I'm happy with the outline, I use a kneaded eraser to get rid of any of the harsh pencil lines, and that way not so much of it will show through when I add the watercolor. For the shaft, I'm using a mix of yellow ochre with a touch of burnt sienna. Because it's a little bit wet, I can add a little bit more burnt sienna on that left side and it creates a little bit more shadow. I'm keeping the feathers pretty simple. I'm using a mix of Payne's Gray and Cerulean Blue. I'm just going to outline the stalks and then I'll outline the exterior, and I'll use small little dash lines for the interior of the feathers. And then I'll use a little bit less water with that same mixture to define the interior lines and also define the stalks a little bit more of the feathers to ground it a little bit more. For the arrowhead, I want to do a clear wash first. I'm just going to drop in color here. So I'm using Winsor Red Deep and I'm going around the outline, allowing it to bleed inward. And I really like how the white peeks through from inside of the heart. So I'll just let it bleed through and then I'll use a damp brush to lift off the color from the inside. And then I will completely dry it before moving on to the cast shadow. So I'm using a mix of Moon Glow and Cerulean Blue and Payne's Gray for my cast shadow. And I wanted it to be a touch different from the actual mixture that I used for the feathers. So this gives a little bit more of a purpley type of blend to it. I like a object defined cast shadow, so I'm really following the outline that I did in my original sketch. And then later I'll do a little bit of a blended portion just outside of the outline so it's not so harsh. I want to outline the actual wall, but I don't want to color it completely in. I just want there to be a suggestion of it. So I'm using a mixture of yellow ochre and burnt sienna light and making it kind of like a beige earth tone. And I'm only going to highlight the actual lines that I created in the original sketch. And then I'm going to use a damp brush to blend it out. I will completely dry it before adding my finishing touch. So I'm using a Payne's Gray to go over the lines that I made in my original sketch, and then I'll use a damp brush to blend it out. And then once that's all blended, I can completely dry it and then I'm done. I hope you enjoyed painting with me. This is how it looks in natural light, and I hope that I'll see you in the next video.